What if the secret to a longer life wasn't some hidden mystery at all, but a blueprint, something we could actually follow? That's what we're going to dig into today. We're going to piece together that blueprint, looking at the science of not just adding more years to your life, but more life to your years. So let's get into it.
So what is the secret to a long and healthy life? I mean, who doesn't want to know that, right? It's a question we've been asking forever. And while there's no single magic pill, what science is starting to show us is a surprisingly clear, multi-layered game plan for living longer and living well.
Okay, so before we jump into all the cool futuristic stuff like genetics or the wisdom of people who've lived past 100, we've got to start with the absolute basics, the foundation of this whole blueprint, solid, quality healthcare that actually helps us manage the health problems we already have.
This first number is pretty eye-opening. It shows this huge gap between having treatments and those treatments actually working. Think about it. A massive study in China looked at 1.7 million adults being treated for high blood pressure, and less than a quarter of them, just 24%, actually had it under control. That's not a failure of science. We know how to treat it. It's a failure of the system to deliver that care effectively.
And when that system fails, it has a real, devastating human cost. Look at this number. In 2016, Mexico reported over 4,500 major lower limb amputations just from diabetes. These aren't unavoidable tragedies. These are largely preventable outcomes that happen when people just can't get the steady, quality care they need to manage their condition.
And this isn't just about chronic diseases either. Let's take HIV. The whole point of treatment is to get to viral suppression, where the virus is undetectable so you can't pass it on. The global target for that is 90%. But in low and middle-income countries, only 71% of people on therapy are actually reaching that goal. The medicine exists, it works, it's the quality of care that's falling behind.
So the takeaway here is pretty clear, right? The journey to a longer life doesn't start in some futuristic lab. It starts in your local clinic. Before we can dream of adding decades to our lives, we have to make sure we're adding quality to the years we have now, with a rock-solid foundation of healthcare.
Okay, so once that foundation is in place, we can move up to the next layer of our blueprint, our biological hardware. What do our genes actually have to say about how long we live, and do we have any control over it? Well, the answer might surprise you.
For the longest time, we kind of thought of aging like an old car. Parts just wear out over time, and eventually it breaks down. But it turns out that's not the whole story. Not even close. As this quote says, our bodies aren't just passively falling apart. They're incredibly active, dynamic systems that are constantly fighting to defend and repair themselves.
And this is where things get really, really cool. Scientists have discovered what they call longevity genes. Now, these aren't some kind of magical anti-aging genes. They're actually survival genes. And they get switched on when our bodies sense a bit of stress, like when we don't have as many calories. When that happens, these genes kick our natural defense and repair systems into high gear. One of the stars of the show here is a gene called SIR2.
What you're seeing here is basically what's happening inside a simple yeast cell. When you put a little stress on it, like giving it fewer calories, it activates this enzyme called SIR2. That enzyme then goes to work protecting the cell's DNA from damage, which basically slows down the whole aging process. The result? A 30% longer lifespan for that cell. It's a perfect example of how a little bit of the right kind of stress can literally make us stronger.
And SIR2 is just the tip of the iceberg. This table shows there's a whole network of these genes that scientists are studying. By tweaking these different pathways, they've seen some absolutely incredible results. We're talking lifespan increases of over 100%, even up to 250% in some organisms. This is essentially the genetic toolkit for a longer life.
But here's the thing. Our genes, that's just the hardware, right? What about the software? The stuff that runs on it, like our mindset, our personality, our relationships. It turns out that for every single study on these psychological factors, there are up to 7 on the biology. So why is this hugely important part of the longevity puzzle so often overlooked? Let's fix that. And that brings us to our third and maybe the most personal layer of the blueprint, our psychological software. To really understand this part, we're going to learn from the true experts, the people who have already made it to 100 and beyond.
So, a major study of centenarians down in Georgia found that a long, healthy life really boiled down to these 4 key areas. It's not just your biology, it's your whole life story, who you are as a person, how you think, and the support systems you have around you.
Let's drill down on personality for a second, because this is fascinating. The study found a really strong link between neuroticism, that tendency to be anxious and experience negative emotions, and worse mental health. No huge surprise there. But check this out. Being highly conscientious, meaning you're organized, responsible, diligent, was linked to better physical health. Your personality isn't just who you are, it's a powerful tool for navigating life.
And this quote, man, it just nails the centenarian mindset. The formula is actually pretty simple. Make peace with your past, and then use what you've got to solve the problems in front of you today. It really is all about resilience and perspective. And that mindset seems to make a huge difference. You'd think living to 100 means you feel frail and in poor health, right? Well, think again. In that same study, almost 72% of the centenarians rated their own health as good or excellent. This just shatters the myth that extreme old age has to equal poor health. It proves that a high quality of life is totally possible, even at 100. Okay, so we've looked at 3 different really important layers: healthcare, genetics, and psychology. Now let's put it all together and see what our complete blueprint for a long and healthy life actually looks like.
So here it is, the whole shebang, the 3 layers of the longevity blueprint. It all starts on that solid ground of foundational healthcare. On top of that, you have our biological resilience, our body's amazing, built-in ability to defend and repair itself. And finally, you have our psychosocial fortitude, the mental and social tools we use to get through life. Each layer builds on the one before it.
And this is really the key takeaway. There's no single secret, no one magic bullet for a long life. The blueprint is holistic. It's about building that strong foundation of healthcare, understanding, and working with our biological hardware, and, just as importantly, cultivating the psychological software that makes it all run smoothly. This blueprint gives us the tools to not just live longer, but to live better. So the final question isn't just for scientists, it's for you, it's for all of us. As we continue to unlock these secrets, what kind of life and what kind of world are we going to choose to build with them?